The Kansas City Chiefs went into Green Bay, and they did not come out of Lambeau Field with the win. They lost 27-19. They are now the number 3 seed in the AFC because Jacksonville lost to both Trevor Lawrence and the game to the Cincinnati Bengals on Monday Night Football. But right now, are the Chiefs in jeopardy of losing the number 1 seed?
Well, the question is kind of worded wrongly because they're the number 3 seed right now. They're obviously having a chance of the number 1 seed. They're in a battle with Baltimore and Miami and Jacksonville. It sounds like Trevor Lawrence may only miss one game or two, but that game or two could come down to, even who wins the AFC South division now, because not only are the Texans in it, but the Colts are in it as well. Before I get to Kansas City, I want to make 2 points. One's about the game, but about Kansas City's side. But I just got to say, because I said it on Brandon's World earlier today, I got to admit, Jordan Love, man, I was wrong. It took about 2 months, but the kid can play. I didn't think the kid could play. I watched him for 2 months. I said he couldn't play, and all of a sudden, over the last month, he's lighting it up like he's Aaron Rodgers. I don't know what happened. It kind of came out of nowhere. That was really fun game Sunday night.
Yes, and I'll tell you what, the Kansas City Chiefs are becoming the referee darlings.
I was going to say
absolutely ridiculous.
That was my second point. Kansas City fans, by the way, how did it feel to get effed over by the NFL officials? Finally feels nice to actually get screwed over for once. And obviously, that was a PI. Could have changed the game. Who knows? Kansas City did not play their great football. But I said today on Brand's World what I said about the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's similar. The Chiefs and the Eagles, both of the teams that were in the Super Bowl last year, NFL defenses are playing them both differently, and we're seeing both teams struggle a little bit. In Kansas City's sake, for some reason, Juju Smith-Schuster was such a big part of that offense somehow.
That's what I was saying.
That without Juju, and obviously Rice has had his moments, but now Kansas City, Isaiah Pacheco, outside of Kelsey, maybe their most explosive player on offense at running back. So because of that, they cannot get explosive plays down the field at all. They have to nickel and dime you. 5 yards, 10 yards, boom, 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 down the field. And, oftentimes when you have to go 3, 4, 3, 4, that's going to lead to more plays, which is going to lead to more mistakes, which is what we saw on the interception last week. So Kansas City, they're still going to be very good. I actually think the team that's in their way for the AFC is not the Dolphins. I actually think it's the Ravens.
I 100% agree with you on that one.
I think the Ravens, now again, here's the issue. Will Lamar Jackson stay healthy over the next 5 weeks? Because I'm not sure that's the case. But if he does, the Ravens are definitely a threat to win the number 1 seed, to win every game remaining on their schedule. Kansas City already beat Miami. I think Miami plays Baltimore in week 17.
Yes,
that's a
in Baltimore.
Game that Baltimore, in my opinion, will definitely win, because it's Miami going out in the cold weather. If it was in Miami, I would pick Miami. I think home field really matters in that game. I think that decides the number 1 seed. I think Kansas City will get the 2 seed. The question's going to be, can Baltimore win a playoff game to get an AFC championship game in Baltimore? Yeah. I think we are destined for Chiefs at Ravens AFC championship game. With your question of the number 1 seed, I don't think they're going to get it. But if Baltimore slips up one time, whether it be at San Francisco or, they have Pittsburgh left in their schedule, they have Miami as well. If they lose one of those games, Kansas City's back out. They got Jake Browning. They got the Raiders again. I know they have Pittsburgh. Who knows if it's going to be Kenny Pickett or Mitch Trubisky at that point. Kansas City's schedule sets up very nicely for them to run the table. And if Baltimore slips up once, that will reopen the door for Kansas City.
Mahomes has never had to play a road playoff game.
Isn't that crazy?
All of his playoff games have been in Arrowhead. Nick Wright on First Things First has been calling the AFC Championship the
The Kansas City Invitational.
Arrowhead
My guy Nick. He is a Chiefs fan through and through. Gone.
Arrowhead Invitational, but whatever. His Chiefs fandom drives me crazy at times on the show, but nonetheless, yeah, I don't think Kansas City is getting the number 1 seed. I think Miami is playing really well right now. We'll get to Tua and Tyreek in a minute, which I can't wait for that conversation, but I digress. Baltimore is playing phenomenal football right now, but you said it. The key is, can Lamar Jackson stay healthy?
That and can their defense, I forgot to mention this. We know what their defense does in the fourth quarter. We saw it against Cleveland week 10. If they're in a close game, are they going to be able to hang on? I got a little bit of a gut feeling Kansas City's going to find a way to get that number 1 seed. I don't know why, but it just, like, if Baltimore loses once, I think Kansas City, I think that they will go undefeated the rest of the way. I'll put it on the table.
Okay. I don't think Kansas City actually plays Pittsburgh.
They don't. Baltimore plays Pittsburgh. Kansas City plays Cincinnati. They play Vegas. Now this Buffalo game's very interesting. I'll say if there's one game they could lose on their schedule. I know we're gonna get to this later in the show, but this Buffalo game now, all of a sudden, the way Josh Allen's been playing since they fired Ken Dorsey, I kind of like. I just said I think Kansas City could go undefeated, but I forgot about Buffalo. I gotta watch Buffalo in this game.
Yeah. So Kansas City's remaining schedule is this: they've got Buffalo, at New England, home against the Raiders, home against Cincinnati, at the Chargers.
Okay. By the way, the Chargers are a good team. They match up with Kansas City, but Brandon Staley's probably out of the job by then, so who cares? So that schedule, you mentioned it, right? New England, Vegas, who else? Cincinnati with Browning. Those should all be wins in theory. And then the Charger game, we know they will end up beating Brandon Staley somehow, some way. Brandon Staley will cost the Chargers the game.
Yes.
So
for Kansas City, this week's Buffalo game is the key. If the Chiefs win, they are in position to take back the number 1 seed and keep the AFC Championship game in Arrowhead Stadium. Right now, Kansas City is a 2.5-point favorite, which I'm actually surprised by, given how Kansas City has played offensively over the past couple weeks.
See, I'm not surprised. That line's about right to me because usually they get 3 points for the home team. I have heard, though, that coming out of Vegas this year, me and you have talked about this a lot, offensive coaches and quarterbacks matter more than ever. You remember I keep telling you, usually they get 3 points to the home team? I've heard from some sources around that actually this year, they've only been giving the home team about 1.5 points. That's how much the quarterbacks have been worth. They're worth about 1.5. They may be worth more. I mean, if you have a quarterback in this league, you're going to win games. If you don't, you're not going to win games. This old school defensive 90s football, we can win the game 10-3. Unless you're Brandon Staley facing Bailey Zappi, it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, that game was pathetic. But, hey, do you think Kansas City is by chance missing Tyreek Hill now?
You know what? We talked about it a couple weeks ago. Yeah, they do. Here's my issue with Tyreek Hill being MVP. And I know there's a lot of talk. I get it. I understand. If he has 2,000 yards, by the way, where the hell has Jalen Waddle been in this offense the whole year? That's kind of been mysterious to me that Tyreek is taking up all these yards. And I also don't get, I think Ron Rivera wants to get fired. Why the hell would you play single-eye safety?
Yeah, that was...
The Chargers did it week 1. Remember we talked about it with Brandon Staley when they gave up all those yards to Tyreek Hill in week 1. But my issue is, if Tua wasn't healthy, if it was, for last year's sake of argument, Mike White or Skylar Thompson throwing these passes, do we really think that Tyreek Hill would have 2,000 yards? Like, I don't think so. Could it be 1,000? Could it be 1,500? But we saw this Miami offense last year Tua versus no Tua. They could not move the ball. And so that's where I give the advantage in this conversation of just Tua versus Tyreek Hill to Tua, because as great as Tyreek Hill is, and wide receivers are great, and wide receivers get open all the time. But if the quarterback can't get you the ball, you're not going to be able to get any yards.
Okay. Before Tyreek Hill got traded to the Miami Dolphins, were we talking about the Miami Dolphins as legitimate contenders?
Okay, I know where you're going. I'm going to push back on this. This has nothing to do with that conversation. Has nothing to do with Tyreek Hill. That conversation
How?
is a
How does
Brian
that have nothing
Flores
to do
to
with?
Mike McDaniel conversation, because Mike McDaniel changed Tua's career around. If it wasn't for Mike McDaniel, Tua may be a backup somewhere because he was a freaking bust. Go watch him. Go look at the number. Tua Tagovailoa was a bust before Mike McDaniel got there. And when Mike McDaniel got to Miami, who did he acquire? Tyreek Hill. Does it absolutely help him that Tyreek Hill is in there? Yes. But if you lose Tyreek Hill, I think the Dolphins can still win games because of the fact they have Mike freaking McDaniel, who's a wizard on offense, calling these plays. That, yes, he's helped him. But Tua is Tua right now because of Mike McDaniel, not because of just Tyreek Hill.
Oh, wow. But you didn't.
Did you not see Brian Flores versus Mike McDaniel, what they're doing in Miami? They flipped overnight from a defensive old school, we're going to play special teams, Tua's getting benched for Ryan Fitzpatrick. Tua's in the MVP conversation, so he got hurt at the end of the year. By the way, at the end of the year last year, Tyreek Hill didn't do anything the last month because Tua didn't play.
Okay, but what about? Do you remember the wild card game? It was Skylar freaking Thompson.
Yeah, I remember. And Sean McDermott's Buffalo Bills defense did not play very well in that game.
Oh, so I get it. You don't want to give credit to the Dolphins.
No, I am kidding. It was an incredible effort. You're on your third straight quarterback. What, they put up 30 points?
Yes, but you literally just said it was because Sean McDermott didn't coach his defense well. You're not giving the Dolphins their proper credit.
I just gave a credit. I just said they put up 30 points with Skylar Thompson. What do you want me to say? Buffalo had a bad defensive game, but part of that had to do with Miami's good scheming on offense. If you can give an MVP award to a coach, obviously they have Coach of the Year, but if you could give an MVP award to a coach, it'd be Mike McDaniel. How fast can you turn a bust quarterback into an MVP type guy? I mean, look at Justin Herbert. We all love Herbert. They can't win games because of Brandon Staley.
Tyreek has a much better MVP case. You know that? You just don't want it?
No, because as I just said, if Tua wasn't playing, how are we so sure that Tyreek Hill would get the ball and go for 2,000 yards?
Because he's that special of a wide receiver. Why do you think Mahomes constantly targeted Tyreek?
Well, let's see, because Mahomes closed his eyes. He admitted this in the Super Bowl. Closed his eyes and said, Tyreek's down there somewhere. Maybe, boom. We all know you need wide receiver talent in the NFL, but we also know. But what is more important than wide receiver? Quarterback. It is the number one position in all of sports, and the number two most important position is backup quarterback, and number three is kicker, and then you get to wide receiver.
Okay, how about this? If a play is designed for Tyreek Hill to do a 10-yard hook route.
Yes, we all know he has great speed. We all know he can take it to the house. Josh, we get it.
Okay, so for that play, who made it? If it's designed to be a 10-yard route.
Let's see. Tua threw the ball out. What happens if Skylar Thompson turns into the ground and doesn't even get to him? Then what?
We're not talking about Skylar Thompson. We are talking about Tua and Tyreek.
Okay, but Tua's got to get the ball to him. What happens if Tua throws it over his head?
That's on Tua, not Tyreek.
Okay, but Tua's got to get the ball to him. Tyreek Hill is dependent on his quarterback.
Yes, but again, if Tyreek takes a 10-yard route and turns it into a 50-yard gain, who made that play? Was it Tua or was it Tyreek?
Tyreek
Answer that
Hill.
question.
Tyreek Hill. But again, to start
There
the
you
play,
go.
but to start the play, it's got to be with Tua. I understand your point, but at the
Well, we got to get to other action from Week 13 of the 2023 season, so let's have at it.
man, this, the 1 o'clock window games didn't look great on paper, but when you bet the Falcons -3, you're slowly and intently making sure Arthur Smith doesn't blow another game. Chargers New England was practically unwatchable. The Chargers, by the way, did you know that line of that game was 5.5? They covered. It was 6-0.
That
Oh,
game
man.
was absolutely terrible.
You know
That
what,
game,
man? Football is funny.
we'll get to Week 14 in a minute, but why is anyone going to waste their time watching Patriots Steelers on Thursday Night Football?
By
Why?
the way, that game will get more ratings than the entire NBA in-season tournament combined. It may get more ratings than the NBA Finals. I'm serious. Bad football is still watchable. Bad basketball is not watchable. Bad baseball is not watchable. Bad football is watchable because football is America's sport. And I'm intrigued to see who can score between Bailey Zappi and Mitch Trubisky. I mean, this game's going to be like 13-10, 10-7. I have no idea. It's going to be a disaster.
Let's get back to Week 13.
Week 13. Well, I told you about my guy, Shane Steichen. I told you about Gardner Minshew. I warned you about the Indianapolis Colts.
I gave you this game last week, and you brushed it off.
I mean, the game shouldn't have been that close. The Colts gave away a couple turnovers. Will Levis did not play that well. There was a couple crazy sequences, a couple blocked punts, then a pick two. Pretty fun game down to the wire.
I told you the Titans always play the Colts tough.
They do, and I said that, but I said I think the Colts will pull it off. One of the biggest takeaways off the top of my head is, what the hell did Jake Browning do, Wes? The guy looked like Joe Burrow. I'm sitting there going, is that number 9 out there? He had only 5 incompletions. I think 3 of them were drops. Jamar Chase. See, this is where the argument to the quarterback goes. Because no matter what, Jamar Chase put up good numbers without Joe Burrow. He put up good numbers with Jake Browning. And Cincinnati, their schedule sets up very nicely too. They got Pittsburgh again. They got Indianapolis, a couple backup quarterbacks. Cincinnati, after looking dead, after looking like they were not going to win a game the rest of the year, they have a chance now, I think, to sneak in the back half of the AFC picture. And my last takeaway before I let you go is, who the hell would have thought the best Browns quarterback this year would have been Joe freaking Flacco?
I don't know about that, because the Browns got absolutely dismantled by the Rams. He
still looked better. It doesn't matter. The offense looked better in this game than it did at any point this year. Looked better than they did with Watson. Looked better than they did with Walker. They may have put up more points with the other quarterbacks as the defense got turnovers. The offense was not the problem against the Rams. Defense gave up 36 points.
All right. Anyway, Detroit, can you be a normal team for once, please?
That's why I don't trust the Lions. I've told you. I think they need a couple more pieces. They went up 21-0 in the flash of a pan and should have arguably watched that game. Derek Carr got hurt again. Jameis Winston came in. It was a mess.
I don't get it. I don't get what's happening with the New Orleans Saints. They have not been the same since Drew Brees and Sean Payton left. I get it. Drew Brees is a Hall of Fame quarterback. For a while, I was actually trying to argue that he was the GOAT over Tom Brady, but
that might be the worst take I ever heard in my life. Drew Brees has one Super Bowl. He's only been to one Super Bowl.
Okay.
What argument are you making it on yards? Which Brady, by the way, passed him like 3 years ago on yards. I mean, what argument?
Brady convinced me when he left New England. And
wait, just that? He should have convinced you after that Super Bowl against Atlanta.
Nope.
I forgot. This is the man I'm talking to. I'm talking to Josh Ungar, the man who takes a different take on everything.
Really? You
Really,
really?
Josh.
Anyway,
I don't know. Tom Brady had about 5 Super Bowls past then. Drew Brees had been to one, hadn't won a playoff game in 4 years. Didn't make the playoffs for like 5 out of it.
we're getting okay. I get it. Look, I admitted Brady was the GOAT when he led the Buccaneers to the NFC Championship and then the Super Bowl. Until
Yeah.
then, no, I
Here,
did not.
here we go again. I win yet another argument. All right, what's your takes?
Okay, anyway. Well, I gave you one about the Lions Saints. I agree with you about the Colts Titans. I had this game on my list. I told you the Titans always play the Colts tough. And Tennessee should have won that game, but Ryan Tannehill, I guess, doesn't know how to hold a football when it comes to kicking field goals.
Hey, listen, holding is harder than it was. Do you know how hard it is to take the snap, get it down, make sure the waves are not turned while there's pressure, while the kicker is coming right by? Philadelphia Eagles former head coach Doug Peterson was once dubbed by Don Shula, the former coach of the Dolphins, the best holder he's ever seen. He considered making him a holding coach.
Okay, and then I'm just going to talk about this. Hey, Denver, what happened to your winning streak?
I told you it was complete frauds. It's because they weren't turning the ball over and getting turnovers at a record margin. By the way, Houston did not play that great in that game. Losing Tank Dell not only kills my fantasy team potentially, I got to win this week or I'm out of the playoff picture, but it also potentially could damn Houston going forward because they did not look like the same offense.
Yeah, I know. I honestly felt bad for CJ Stroud and the Texans offense because CJ was the one that advocated for the Texans to draft Tank Dell. So, and you see the connection that they were forming. So, when I heard that, that hurt. I'm not even a Texans fan, but I was just really enjoying watching what Houston was doing. That's why I was like fighting for them over the past couple of weeks, just because like the Texans were in such shambles over the couple of years. You know, they fired Lovie Smith, they fired David Culley. Like nobody wanted to be there, and yet here they are.
It's why I keep telling you the quarterback position is the most important in sports. Look at Cincinnati a couple years ago. Joe Burrow was in a tire fire. They won 2 games. Joe Burrow tore his ACL. What did they do the very next year? They went to the freaking Super Bowl with basically the same roster plus him and Jamar Chase. The Cincinnati Bengals and the Houston, I'm not saying the Texans are going to make the Super Bowl, but the Texans went from a Deshaun Watson disaster to, as you mentioned, Lovie Smith, David Culley. They get CJ Stroud. They get Will Anderson, who might have a chance to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. And they go from a tire fire to a legitimate playoff contender in 1 year. That's what the quarterback position does. You get it right, you're good for 10 years. You don't, you're stuck at the bottom of the league.
And right now, the Houston Texans absolutely won that trade with the Browns, hands down. Houston fleeced the Browns.
Well, yes, they did, but they had to make good on those draft picks, which they absolutely did.